Good morning, digital audio class. Today we'll be using loops to create melodies. So as you can see, I have my Soundtrap project up, which I got to by clicking the Open in Soundtrap icon in Music First, and I've gone ahead and listened to the directions track, and I created a split screen, and if you can do this, I'd recommend it because it just makes everything a little bit easier. But if you're working on a Chromebook, don't worry about it because those screens yeah, a little bit small. So I'm on a desktop today, and if you're on a desktop, there's ways to do it too on Windows machines. So I'm using a Mac, and the way that you do it on a Mac is by clicking and holding in the green button. I'm not exactly sure how to do it on Windows, but it's something you can look up. All right, so creating melodies with loops. A region is an encapsulated area of music in the arrangement window. So this direction here is a region with the audio that I recorded for the directions track. And regions can be created by creating recording your own music or by using the pre-recorded loops in the software. These pre-recorded segments are known as loops. Choose a loop from the library and drag and drop it. Regions can be automatically copied and pasted in the software by looping them, grabbing the upper corner of the region by clicking and holding with your mouse, and dragging across the track to the right. Regions can also be edited to make them shorter by splitting them into sections or grabbing the lower right or lower left corner of the region by clicking and holding with your mouse and dragging the region inward to make it smaller. We've done this all before in our loop composition, so this should all be a review. So we're talking about melody this week, and a melody is defined as a combination of pitches and rhythms that forms a musical idea. The tune, usually one note at a time. Melodies have repetition of ideas. Melodies have a beginning, middle, and end. So we want to think about that as we create our melody. So we'll be creating two separate melodies using the pre-recorded loops in the software's library, using a minimum of 3, but no more than 4 of the pre-recorded loops found in the software's loop library. However, each loop must be limited to a one-measure region. You can edit longer, multiple measure loops to create one-measure regions. Use these 3 or 4 one-measure regions to create a melody that is a total of 8 measures long by copying and pasting or looping the region. Let's begin. So we've already opened the file in Soundtrap. Step 2, the software's loop library, which we can access by clicking the purple music note, clearing the filter. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose 3 loops that I like. Now for myself, I'm going to go with the MIDI loops. MIDI loops offer an advantage over real audio loops in that, well, let me show you. If I take this loop, let's not do a drum one. Let's take a piano. So if I take this MIDI loop, and you can see how the information in the audio region looks. It's just these lines. So if I click and bring it up in the editor, you can edit it like that. The other thing you can do is change the instrument sound. So right now it's a piano Rhodes, but let's say I want it to be a string section, and I want it to be a cello chamber sound. Now, clicking play, you can hear you have a different sound. If this were a real instrument loop, something that was a recording of something, it would look like this. So this was actually someone, a real musician, live musician, recorded this part into Soundtrap's loop library, and we can now use this in our compositions. However, I don't have the same options available to me. There's no way I can change the sound, and when I double click on it, there's no way I can change the note values or edit the rhythmic values. So for this assignment, I'm going to stick to MIDI loops. So I'm going to go ahead and find 3 different loops from the MIDI family that I want to use for my melody. Okay, so I've selected my loops that I want to use. I selected 3 MIDI loops, and I have this one down here too. I want to show you this one. Avoid loops like this. So let's give it a listen. So this loop's okay. You could probably figure out a way to use it, but it might be a little bit challenging right now because this loop kind of it uses both melodic and harmonic elements in it. Uh, for this assignment, you want to stick to these sorts of loops here, and these were all from the bass family. The bass, the bass is an instrument that generally doesn't play chords, and the bass loops are good ones to work with for this. So I'm going to get rid of this one, and for this assignment, avoid loops like this and stick to you hear this loop, it's all just pure melody. So there are my 3 loops. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and figure out what one measure sample of each one of these loops I'm going to use to stitch together to create my melodic phrase. Okay, so for this one, I think I like that first measure. So I'm going to use this trim tool and just chop that down to a 1-bar segment. And let's go ahead and see what I like from this loop. Okay, so for this one, I think I'm going to take that first bar and I'm going to bump this over here. And I'm actually going to put this right at the beginning of the tune. And let's give this a listen and see what bar of this I want to sample. For this one, I'm actually going to take the last bar. All right, let's rewind and hear how these 3 sound played one after the other. Make sure that you have them arranged like this. Okay, let's go back to our directions and check out what it says. So we dragged the loops into the range. We did this already. And we made 3 loops into 1-bar samples. And now I'm going to create an 8-measure melody using these 3 loops. So all right, so there you have it. There's my melody, and you can see I've gone ahead and just put them in the same track so that they have the same sound. It would sound, you want the melody to be played by one instrument. And now I'm going to go ahead and see. I'm not sure I want my melody in the bass. I might put it in the bass actually, but I'm going to experiment with some other sounds. Let's say maybe a synth sound and see what stint stalactite sounds like. And for this, alright, so for this one, a good way to do this would be to use the loop function, and then just hit play, and open up your instrument preset menu, and then just go through. So these are the sound effects ones. Let's go to the leads one. Alright, yeah, I kind of like the Cyber Duck. So I think my melody's going to be in the Cyber Duck. I'm going to get rid of these tracks because you don't need them. Let's hit stop. Let's go back to R. Oh, great. So we have to do this again on another track, but that's the procedure. So in conclusion, what I would suggest is using MIDI loops so that you have better control over the sound and any kind of editing that we want to do in the future. And in particular, I would recommend exploring these bass sounds because they're going to be mostly MIDI bass is going to be, I think, the most beneficial one because you're going to get notes that are just pure melody without any kind of chords or any other harmonic information, and this will give you the most leeway in creating your melodies. Drag them into the area, into the arrange window, and then figure out what part of the loop you want to use for your melody, and then use the trim function on either side of the region of audio to edit it down to a 1-bar segment, and then combine those 1-bar segments into a melody that sounds good to you. And you can notice in my melody, I used a lot of repetition. Melodies often have repetition. So here I just took that one segment and I repeated it 3 times, and then I used this as a little bit of an answer, right? And same thing here, I used the same formula to create this melody where I used my other sample as the answer for that phrase. Once you're finished, make sure you click save. Again, you should have 2 of these melodies, each one of these 8 bars in length, and then submit task using the file menu. Look forward to seeing what you guys have, and we'll be coming back to this and developing this melody in future assignments.